Hello everyone. Today we are going to have a quick look at Codex and the OpenAI Life Sciences plugin. This will not be a tutorial on how Codex works. There are already plenty of resources online for that. My goal here is much simpler. I would like to see how Codex combined with life science tools could help answer a scientific question. In simple terms, Codex is an AI assistant that can also work with code. The Life Sciences plugin adds another layer. It gives Codex access to scientific skills connected to about 50 tools or databases. A plugin, in this context, is basically a toolbox. It can include instructions, markdown files, API descriptions, and sometimes MCP-style components that tell the assistant which scientific resources are available and how to use them. Before starting, I just want to clarify one point. We are not talking here about the Rosalind project. GPT-Rosalind is OpenAI's dedicated life sciences research model, but at the moment, it is only available in research preview to eligible organizations. Rosalind is being developed for deeper scientific reasoning across areas like biology, drug discovery, genomics, and translational medicine. But what I am testing here is different. I am only using Codex, thus ChatGPT 5.5 together with the Life Sciences plugin. Now let's move into Codex. I'm using the Codex app, and as you can see, I've already activated the Life Sciences plugin in the environment. The plugin contains different skills connected to many scientific resources. So the idea is not just to ask a chatbot for a general answer. The idea is to give Codex access to a scientific toolbox. And in this screenshot, you can see the Codex pet in blue. It stays on the screen while Codex is working. At this stage, it does not have many functionalities, but we can consider it as a small robot companion, a tiny lab assistant, helping us keep an eye on the computations. Here, you see the first group of skills and tools available through the Life Sciences plugin. And this is the second group of available tools. Now the process starts. My question is about comparing 3 proteins from the blood coagulation cascade for which medicinal drugs are either already available or currently being developed. And based on the existing knowledge, identifying which protein may represent the most promising drug target for further developments. I asked Codex to generate a short comparison table for the 3 proteins and to provide a concise summary. The AI then works through the request step by step, retrieving information from multiple databases, including the clinical trials database. Here we have the results. Codex generated a table for each coagulation protein as requested and also provided a short summary. I used ChatGPT 5.5 with the intelligence level set to medium, but I did not test the high or extra high settings. The analysis across the different databases took about 8 minutes before the output was generated. Here we have the table for thrombin. We see here the table for factor 10, and this is the data for factor 11. Now that I have the answer from Codex, I wanted to compare it with ChatGPT. I asked online ChatGPT a very similar question, but I changed the prompt slightly. With Codex, I explicitly asked it to use public life science databases, but ChatGPT cannot connect to the same databases, at least not with the default online window, so the comparison is not perfectly one-to-one. Codex is being tested here as a tool-connected assistant, while ChatGPT is being used more as a general scientific reasoning assistant, mostly relying on knowledge learned during training. This is the ChatGPT output table. ChatGPT and Codex reach a similar conclusion. Both suggest that factor 11 is probably the most attractive target for future anticoagulant discovery, while factor 10 remains the clinical benchmark and thrombin is more difficult to improve on. But the important difference is the path to the answer. ChatGPT gives a strong general interpretation based mainly on knowledge learned during training. Codex, with the Life Sciences plugin, can combine this type of reasoning with external scientific resources, databases, structures, drug information, clinical trials, and literature. For very well-known targets like here, the final answer looks similar because a lot has already been published on these proteins. But for a newer target, a recent dataset, or a more specific question, database access and tool use could make a significant difference. My conclusion here is that the two approaches lead to a similar overview, but they are still complementary. The reason is that the level and type of information provided in the ChatGPT table and in the Codex table are not the same. ChatGPT is very useful for a fast, scientific explanation. It can quickly summarize the biology, highlight the main advantages and limitations, and produce a clear comparison. Codex combined with life science tools is more interesting for research and evidence-based work because it can retrieve information, organize it, and move toward a more traceable and reproducible analysis. But to really move beyond, the next step would be to use sharper prompts and a more iterative workflow. That is, build several AI agents and push the investigation further. For example, in a real project, we could ask the system to retrieve additional data, build structured tables, check the sources, compare the level of evidence, iterate, and then refine the answer step by step. In other words, what would be needed is a more complete scientific and clinical AI assistant pipeline with human in the loop. Such a pipeline could compare doses, therapeutic windows, adverse effects, protein interaction networks, include more omics data, and many other layers of information. So overall, I think this is promising, but a lot of work is needed before we have a full drug target discovery system. Some groups are already working in this direction, but it is not that simple. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.